Hello everyone, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan, and thank you for joining me in my little corner of the internet where we're going to be talking pens, inks, and planners. And I apologize for my voice ahead of time. I'm still recovering from being away on vacation and the San Francisco Pen Show. And I have just found the energy to be able to do this today. I've been in bed pretty much all day. And now I'm going to film my progress report for my August currently inked. Let's just get right into it. The first pen and ink combination was my Leonardo Momento Zero Winter Sunrise. This is an extra fine nib, and it has inked in it Wearing Gold 12th Night. I kind of have to remember how to do this. I feel like I've forgotten. I love this pen, but the ink was inconsistent. It felt like I had to force it out of the pen. And you really shouldn't push hard on your pens when writing with them. And there's also evaporation as well. Now I gave the ink a 9 because it's gorgeous, but again, inconsistent. The flow a 7, and the comfort level of my Memento Zero a 9. Now here is the completed Zentangle and the comparisons on the different papers. I find it interesting that the bank paper has like a tiny bit of yellow in here. Really, really interesting. I also like that the tone looks slightly different on the Aerofil paper. That is what I'm noticing. It's beautiful, but it's probably not the easiest to write with an extra fine or a fine nib. It looks really pretty in the Zentangle and in the Rose, but probably not one that I would recommend for fine and extra fine nibs. So that is my Leonardo Momento Zero Winter Sunrise with Wearing Gold 12th Night. The next pen and ink combo was my Pilot Kakuno in the Mataromi Pink, and I had Van Diemen's Kitten Paws, which is a very new to me ink, and I really love how the two of these match. Loved using this. This was a lovely combination. I thought the way this ink goes down brown and dries pink, it's so fascinating. And I love the elevated look of the Mataromi Pink Kakuno. So I gave the ink a 10 because it's just stunning. You know me in dusty pinks. I gave the flow a 10 because there were no issues out of the fine nib in the Pilot, and the comfort level of the Kakuno a 9. And I really, really thought this was such an interesting mix of the reactions on the different papers. Look at how it just reacted on the Aerofil paper, and that could have been because I did put a lot down on that paper, but look at how almost coral or orange it looks on the Midori paper. And yes, I guess that's also part of the cream, but on the papers down here as well, it looks more coral rather than pink, leaning more towards that color. But then when you're actually doing a Zentangle with it, it does look more like that dusty pink that I really, really enjoy. But almost here, maybe because again, Rhodia is the first paper that I do the swatch on. You're going to have more ink there. It's going to look more saturated. It definitely looks more brown there, but it's a beautiful color, and I really love that I got to try it. I'm going to hang on to every bit of that sample as much as possible. So that is Van Diemen's Kitten Paws with my Pilot Kakuno Mataromi Pink. The next pen and ink combination is my collaboration with Zodiac Penco. This is the Sea Glass Kaleidoscope in Sagittarius model. This is actually still available for pre-order on Zodiac Penco's site, and now it comes with an engraved nib. I don't have it on here yet, an engraved nib and a sticker by me. So go ahead and visit Bart's site for that. And this is inked with Van Diemen's Tamar Pinot Noir. While the color of the ink is beautiful, it actually bled through all of the papers that I used it on. So I didn't really reach for this combo as much, even though this model, the Sagittarius model, is so comfortable. So I gave the ink a 9 because it's stunning, but the flow a 7 because of how it bled through the different papers I used it on, mostly Tomoe River paper. And I gave the Sagittarius model a comfort level of 10. Now, when you look at the ink on the different papers, just look at how, I mean, I don't know if you can really see it on camera, but to me, it really does have a variance here. It looks more like Dominant Industry Maple on these two, so leaning more towards the orange, whereas it's definitely a lot more red here. And then on the Aerofil paper, it looks more pink. Really interesting. And I love how, I mean, maybe it's not the standard effect, but because of the evaporation in the Sagittarius, it started out darker here and then definitely went lighter the more I went along. But it really was unfortunate that, I mean, if you look on the back of this, you could really see how it's bleeding through the Tomoe River paper. So that's Van Diemen's Tamar Pinot Noir in my Zodiac Penco Sea Glass Kaleidoscope. The next pen and ink combination was my Esterbrook Esty in Petrified Forest, and this has Pilot Iroshizuku Yuyake. Now, I'm trying to remember what ink I used in this last time because there's still hints of shimmer in here, which made the combination really fun to use. I don't normally like orange inks, but I really enjoyed these two together, and probably because it's not like a garish orange. There were no issues with the flow, lovely shading, and this is a really comfortable pen. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 10 because I do like above average wetness, and the comfort level of the SD a 10. And just look at the way this ink looks on all the different papers and how much, I guess, the difference in saturation. Yes, there's going to be more ink on the Rhodia paper because that is the first one I write on, but it does look more similar in tone to the way it goes down in the Tomoe River paper. And look at how much more peach it looks on the Iroful paper. And then definitely lighter amongst the Onion Skin, Yamamoto Bank, and Bank. But it's definitely darker because, again, with the extra fine nib that's on here, you're going to get more shading in those areas that I'm going over and over again. And that's why I actually like the Zentangles, because you really get those shading properties that come out in the ink. So that is Pilot Iroshizuku Yuyaki in my Esterbrook Esty Petrified Forest. Stay, stay, stay. The next combination is my Labon 325 in Snow, and I have it inked with Inkabara Earth, which was one of the inks that I tried when I was looking for a Pilot Iroshizuku Inaho dupe. I thought these two were a great match. I really love the tone of this brown, and you can see hints of the pink even in an extra fine nib, but you do have to look a little harder for it. So I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the pen a 10. A really well-rounded combination. So there are these different inks, or sorry, different paper samples for the Inkibara Earth, and it looks more yellow actually, or not as pink as I thought it would on this paper, whereas here it definitely looks more pink. It's really interesting, the difference there. I mean, on this Tomoe River paper, you can definitely see a little bit more pink here, but it's looking a little more yellow or brown on these different papers. Really like how the Zentangle came out, but in the Zentangle, you can't really see those hints of pink. So this is why I really like doing the paper swatches as well as the Zentangle, because if you're just writing with your pens and inks every day, you're not going to get the intricacies that you see in the ink swatches. While they're fun, just on a day-to-day practical sense, you're not going to see all of those characteristics, which is why I like to be able to do this. It's more of a little bit of an independent study of each of these inks. So that is Inkabara Earth with Labon 325 in Snow. The next pen and ink combination is the Esterbrook Niblett, and this is inked with Robert Oster Crocodile Green. While I love the ink and I think the resin of the pen is lovely, the niblet itself is too narrow and small for me to be really comfortable with long writing sessions. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the niblet a 7. Crocodile green is actually a really lovely green. Now you can see how much more yellow or how much warmer it looks on the Rhodia, Midori, and the Iroful paper, and then how much cooler it looks on the Onion Skin, Yamamoto Bank, and Bank papers. Really interesting. And then on the Tomoe River paper, it looks like it's almost a combination of the two and sitting right in the middle of the two there. But I really love how when you're combining or doing the same strokes in the same spot over and over again, you really get the shading effects. But unfortunately, even doing this Zentangle was uncomfortable for me because of how small the niblet is. So that is Robert Oster Crocodile Green with Esterbrook Niblett in Botanical Gardens. The next pen and ink combination is my lovely Sailor and Wancher Frozen Sake, and this has a fine nib, and it is inked with Kitty Inkpot Dissipate the Mist. And this was the pen and ink combination that I used in my A6 5-year journal for the month of August. These two were an almost perfect combination. There were times this ink did feel a little dry, but otherwise this was a very smooth, fine nib. Thank you, Kirk. and it wrote so, so well. So I gave the ink a 9 because it's just gorgeous. The flow an 8 because it could have been a little wetter, and the comfort level of the launcher an 8. So there are the different swatches on the papers, and you can see even Robert Oster Crocodile Green had bled through the papers a little bit, especially in the areas where there's a lot of the same stroke going through. So it's a little distracting, but you'll be able to see just how beautiful this ink is. It seems pretty consistent throughout all the different papers. Definitely, of course, of the cream paper looking a little more green in that one, but otherwise really consistent throughout. And just, I love how this Zentangle, this doodle turned out. This practice was just so meditative, and I was doing this while we were on vacation. It was one of those things where I sat in a corner away from people and just did this over and over, and it was so relaxing. And for me, it was that time I needed to get away from a lot of stimulation. This is why I do these Zentangles, because I love to be able to just sit back and relax and just focus on the feeling of the pen on the paper and then seeing the shapes that are produced from that. So absolutely beautiful, really great. And I'm really in love with this pen. This was a very spontaneous purchase at the Pacific Northwest Pen Show, and I do not regret it at all. So that is Kitty Inkpot Dissipate the Mist with my Sailor Launcher Frozen Sake with a fine nib. The next pen and ink combo is my Mayfair Pens Nulor in Valinor, and this has an extra fine imperial nib, and I paired it with Tono and Limbs and number 11, which is the boundary between like and dislike, and I actually bought a bottle of this ink at the San Francisco Pen Show because I just loved it that much. This combination was so fun to use, and this ink was so easily legible. You wouldn't think it at first, but it's a lovely legible purple, no issues, and beautiful shading, and I loved it so much that I bought a bottle of it at the SF Pen Show. So I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Noldor a 9. So here are the paper swatches in my A6 Hobonichi Hone, and again, really beautiful ink. Look at the chromo shading that's happening here. You've got the pink in there, so, so pretty. Now, while you may not always be able to see it, depending on the nib that you're using, I had an extra fine imperial in here. There were some areas that really showed off that shading, and I loved it so much that I did buy a bottle. Beautiful ink, very well behaved. So that is my Tono and Limbs number 11 boundary between like and dislike, and my Mayfair Pens Noldor Valinor with an extra fine imperial nib. The second last combination is my Walltown Watts Glenda with Diamine Deck the Halls. Both just scream, we need lots of shimmer. So yes, that's what I went for. I did not get to use this combo as much as I would have liked, and I'm pretty sad because it's such a fun combo. The shimmer is consistent, no issues or hard starts in the fine nib, so really great in a fine nib. I gave the ink a 10 because it's stunning, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Watts model a 10. Can we just look at how fun this purple is? Look at the moodiness in that purple, and then you add the pink shimmer to that, and I'm going to see if the camera can pick up all of the shimmer that's in that doodle and where it pools in the middle. Just a really, really fun ink. And I still have maybe like 2 mils of a sample left. So I'm definitely going to be using that probably towards Christmas. So that is Diamine Deck the Halls with my Walltown Watts Glenda. That's not going to stay in place. And the last pen and ink combination is my Leonardo Memento Zero in Via Lattea with Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukushi. It is a beautiful brown ink, but unfortunately I'm not a fan of the sheen. Otherwise, it flowed beautifully out of this extra fine nib, and unfortunately the sheen is just too much for me. I'm quite light sensitive. So I gave the ink an 8, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Memento Zero a 9. So here's the ink on all of the different papers, and I will have you notice how burgundy it looks on the Aerofil paper. It looks the way it should, I guess, on all the other papers, but it looks like the burgundy is really coming out on the Aerofil paper. I like how caramelly brown it looks on Midori, Yamamoto Bank, but then even here, when I added a bit of added a bit of water to the roses, how much the pink came out, which is lovely. So that is my Leonardo Momento Zero Via Lattea with Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukushi. So there are all of the different pen and ink combinations that I used for August, and I didn't use them as much as I would have liked to for the month just because I was on vacation. It's really busy, and I tried to journal as much as possible. Plus, I also wasn't taking work notes, so I wasn't writing as much as I would have. I'm really glad that I only inked up 10 pens and inks for the month of August, and I'll probably be doing the same for September. I'm really happy with some of these combinations, but a little disappointed in some of them. Now, going into September, I won't be doing 15 inks 30 days just because after coming back from SF, I'm exhausted, still recovering from a sickness, and just I am too dang tired. So I won't be doing 15 inks 30 days in September, but I will be putting out a currently inked shortly. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching and have yourselves a great day.